welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're cracking open something.
Yeah.
Well, something pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, this isn't your typical UFO sighting.
No, definitely not. We're talking about years, literally years, of documented consistent interaction, cohabitation even, with non-human intelligence. It's detailed, it's specific, and frankly, it kind of challenges everything.
It really does. And the source for all this is one man, primarily, Charles Hall.
Right. He was an Air Force weather observer, stationed out at the Indian Springs Gunnery Ranges, which is, part of that huge Nellis Air Force Base area in Nevada.
This was back in the mid-60s, 65 to 67.
And what makes Hall so compelling, or maybe just harder to dismiss, is the guy himself, his background.
Absolutely. This isn't just some random dude seeing lights. Hall has a master's degree in nuclear physics.
Nuclear physics, and apparently when he joined the Air Force, his math ability was just off the charts. Like, he missed one question out of 500 on their big math test.
1 out of 500. So you're dealing with someone incredibly analytical, incredibly intelligent.
Exactly. The kind of person who doesn't just see something impossible, but then tries to build a whole new scientific theory to figure out how it could be possible.
Which he does. We'll get into that.
Yeah. So our mission for you today, our deep dive, is to really unpack Hall's claims. We're looking at this idea of multiple ET species living out there near Area 51, the logistics of their presence, which gets surprisingly mundane sometimes.
Right. Down to bathroom breaks.
Seriously. And the big one, his radical new physics, the Hall photon theory, which he says explains how they pull off faster than light travel, something he claims he saw all the time. Basically, throwing Einstein out the window.
It's a lot to cover, so let's start where Hall started. Out in the middle of nowhere, Nevada desert.
Okay, setting the scene. Hall's job, weather observer, meant he was incredibly isolated. Like tours of duty lasting weeks, completely alone.
Yeah, stuck out at these remote monitoring stations scattered across the Indian Springs Gunnery Ranges, just measuring wind, temperature, atmospheric stuff for military drills.
And this place is huge. It's desolate. It's designed to be cut off.
And we need to talk about Area 51, because for Hall, back then, Area 51 Groom Lake, that was just the front door, basically, the famous bit.
Right. He said the real action, what the insiders apparently called Dreamland, was way bigger. It covered areas 53 and 54, further north, deep in Indian Springs Valley, Dog Bone Valley.
He even says he was stationed in places labeled up to Area 60. So you're talking this enormous, super secret, intentionally hard to reach zone, perfect for hiding. Well, whatever needed hiding.
And that extreme isolation, the psychological pressure cooker it created, that's key to how this all started for him.
He and apparently some other guys out there, maintenance crews, other observers, started seeing things at a distance.
Strange figures, right? Tall, pale, sometimes kind of glowing, moving around at night.
Yeah. And being totally alone out there for weeks, Hall's first reaction wasn't aliens, it was rationalization.
He thought maybe ghosts, hallucinations, just his mind playing tricks because he was so isolated and tired.
Exactly. He even joked, apparently, that if he was going to hallucinate a woman out there, he'd prefer a Las Vegas showgirl, not these weird, tall, glowing figures.
Yeah. But the fact that other people were seeing similar stuff suggested it wasn't just him. It was becoming part of the local lore almost.
Absolutely. Which led to this specific story, this legend that the range guys passed around. They called it the Legend of Range for Harry.
Okay, this story's kind of amazing. It perfectly shows how you get this mix of bizarre reality and, military campfire tales.
So the legend described this giant, ghostly white horse, fluorescent even, and get this, supposedly radioactive.
Radioactive? Why radioactive?
The story went that it got zapped in a bomb test out at Yucca Flats, and now its ghost just floated around the gunnery ranges at night.
So basically a spooky story to tell people.
See that weird glowing white thing? Stay away, it's dangerous. Radioactive ghost horse.
Pretty much. A perfect piece of folklore to explain away something inexplicable and keep people clear.
But the punchline, according to Hall, is that Range for Harry wasn't a horse or a ghost. It was the actual name of a specific tall white individual.
Wow. Oh.
And that glowing, floating horse, that was just how their high-speed travel formation looked from a distance. We'll break that down later, but it's wild.
But before Hall could even start to piece that together, the military had a problem. They needed someone who could actually stay out there without completely losing it.
Right. Because the history before Hall got there is pretty grim. The sources say that 41 men assigned to those observer posts before him came back compromised.
Compromise meaning
Ew.
what? Nervous breakdowns?
Yeah, breakdown, severe mental instability, or they just point blank refused to ever go back out to the ranges. The psychological impact was apparently brutal and immediate.
It wasn't just psychological trauma, though, was it? There's that one case.
Yeah, that's darker. One observer specifically was severely injured, physically injured, and had to be discharged.
And the injuries were strange.
According to the doctor at the Nellis Base Hospital who treated him, the wounds looked disturbingly similar to the kind of blast damage seen on victims from Hiroshima.
Okay, so we're beyond just seeing spooky things. This is actual, physical, dangerous interaction happening.
Exactly. Which is why the military, or whoever was running this, needed someone different, someone who wouldn't shatter on first contact.
Enter Charles Hall. And this is where the CIA psychiatrist comes in.
Apparently, yes. A CIA psychiatrist evaluated Hall and found something unusual. Hall supposedly possessed an abnormally high number of psychological defense mechanisms. The number cited is 70 out of 105 known human defenses.
70. Most people use what, like a handful?
Right. And the theory, according to the psychiatrist, was that the previous 41 men failed because they experienced recognition without time to react. They saw the tall whites, instantly processed, this is real, this is alien, and the whole worldview just imploded. Instant breakdown.
But Hall's 70 defenses, they work differently.
They worked by delaying the acceptance of reality. His brain could see something impossible, but instead of immediately accepting it and freaking out, his defenses would kick in and supply a mundane explanation, buying him time.
Like a buffer?
Exactly, like a buffer. So the example given is when he saw tall white children playing inside his barracks. Instead of thinking alien kids, his mind went to, I must be sick. Maybe I need more vitamins. I should drink more milk.
That's quite a defense mechanism. Blaming it on vitamin deficiency.
It allowed him to keep functioning under the assumption that he was just hallucinating or unwell until he could slowly, logically process the actual reality without collapsing. He delayed the freak out, essentially.
And this weird psychological setup even messed with their technology, the tall whites tech.
Yeah, that's another fascinating claim. Hall says the tall whites used electronic devices, sometimes worn in a kind of helmet, that could implant thoughts or suggestions, a sort of electronic hypnotism to manage human perception around them.
Mind control tech.
Basically. But Hall claims it often failed on him. And the reason? Because he was angry or tired or in physical pain. Like he had a badly bruised knee once, and the pain, the altered blood flow, or electrical activity in his brain from being hurt or stressed, it apparently interfered with the device.
So being cranky or having a sore knee acted like a shield against alien mind control.
It seems that way. The simple, messy reality of being human pain, anger, exhaustion created a glitch in their very sophisticated system. It's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it really is. His own human limitations accidentally protected his ability to observe clearly.
So once Hall managed to, get his head around the initial shock and wasn't just dismissing everything as hallucinations, he started to realize this wasn't just one type of being out there.
Right. He describes this established, multi-species environment, almost like an ecosystem, but with a clear pecking order, technologically speaking.
He details 3 main groups he was aware of. First, the ones he interacted with most, the tall whites.
Okay, the tall whites. What are the key characteristics?
Tall, obviously. Pale. They apparently have the best tech and incredibly long lifespans. Hall estimates 600 to 800 years.
800 years. Wow. And they're from where?
He places their home system near Arcturus, which is about 36 light years away.
Okay, and despite having the best tech, they weren't the most common sight.
No, interestingly, he figured they only accounted for about 10% of the crack sightings he personally witnessed or heard about.
So who made up the other 90%?
That was the Greys.
The classic image. Little guys, big heads.
Exactly. Matches that Roswell description. Small, frail-looking, large heads. Hall says their tech is also very advanced, maybe not quite tall white level, but still way beyond us.
And they were here first.
He suggests they were, mainly because their home planet is apparently closer to Earth than the tall white system is, so easier commute maybe, and that proximity and earlier arrival meant they were just more numerous, hence 90% of the sightings.
Okay, tall whites, grays. Who was the third group?
The third group he calls the Nordics, or sometimes the Norwegians.
Nordics. Like human-looking blonde hair, blue eyes kind of thing.
Pretty much. He describes them as more diplomatic, but also barely spacefaring compared to the others, like maybe they hitched a ride or just didn't have the same level of interstellar capability.
Any distinguishing features?
One weird biological detail he mentions. They supposedly have 24 teeth, not 32 like us.
Huh. 24 teeth?
Yeah.
And when did they show up?
He suggests they arrived much later, towards the end of the last ice age, and importantly, some of them could apparently pass for human pretty easily. Blend in.
Okay, so you've got these different groups, but why here? Why Earth? And specifically, why this empty patch of Nevada desert? It seems like a weird place to set up shop if you're an advanced spacefaring civilization.
Hall offers a reason that's less about Earth itself and more about location, location, location. On a galactic scale. He calls it the pit stop theory.
A pit stop? Like a truck stop on the interstellar highway?
Kind of, yeah. He points out something astrophysicists know. Our solar system is kind of out in the boonies. We're in a relatively large void in space. Meaning, most star systems are closer together, maybe only light weeks apart. But our newest neighbor, Alpha Centauri, is over 4 light years away. That's a long haul between gas stations if you're traveling between stars.
So the sun, our solar system, becomes a really important waypoint. A place to stop, maybe refuel, rest, do repairs.
Exactly. A critical interstellar pit stop for commerce, travel, whatever they're doing out there. Hall even noticed their arrivals and departures often seemed timed around the full moon, suggesting predictable schedules.
And if it's a long-standing pit stop, that implies the infrastructure isn't new. It's not something the U.S. military built in the 50s.
Precisely. Hall's claim is that this setup is ancient. He suggests the Greys were here before the last ice age and the Tall Whites established their main base during it. We're talking tens of thousands of years old.
Okay, that's a huge claim. Does he offer any specifics about that ancient infrastructure?
He does, actually. One really startling detail about the Greys. He describes this specific L-shaped valley way out in the desert with a dry lake bed. And he points out that during the Ice Age, Nevada wasn't all glaciers like up north. It was wetter, rainier, a pluvial lake region, which means...
It could have supported agriculture.
Exactly. Hall claims the Greys, who he says are strict vegetarians, actually farmed grain in this valley during the Ice Age.
Farmed grain? Okay, how do they store it, protect it?
Get this. They supposedly cut 13 distinct tunnels deep into the mountainside flanking the valley. A massive, ancient granary carved into the rock.
13 tunnels.
And the valley's shape, a natural bottleneck, apparently made it defensible. Hall suggests Grey teenagers, using some kind of specific weaponry, would stand guard at the entrances to keep out the large, plant-eating Ice Age megafauna that would have been roaming around looking for a snack.
So you're painting a picture of not just a secret base, but an incredibly ancient agricultural and storage facility that the modern U.S. military base was just built on top of, or adjacent to.
That seems to be the implication. Which brings us back to that weirdest bit of local folklore.
The radioactive horse.
Yeah.
Range for Harry?
Right, because Hall's explanation for that legend, the high-speed horse formation, ties directly into this idea of them just living there, moving around.
Okay, break this down. How does a group of tall whites look like a floating horse?
It's about their suits and how they travel fast over the desert, maybe when they're hiking or playing, he suggests. Speeds up to 100 miles per hour, apparently.
Way faster than running. So how?
They're protective suits. He says they emit force fields. These let them float about maybe 9 or 10 inches off the ground, though they can go higher if needed.
Okay, personal levitation tech.
Yeah, but for high speed, a group, say 2 men, 2 women, 3 kids, would merge their individual suit force fields into one single larger field.
Like linking up their personal bubbles.
Sort of, and then they arrange themselves inside this merged field. The women bend over towards the front.
Forming the neck and head.
Visually, yes. The children float higher up in the middle section, and the men bend over towards the back.
The rear end of the horse.
Basically. Now, picture that whole formation, seen from maybe a quarter mile away at night. The merged force field itself would glow or shimmer a bit, maybe interacting with the air. It would look like one single, large, glowing, white shape floating rapidly above the ground.
A giant fluorescent floating horse.
Exactly, matching the legend. It's such a bizarrely specific explanation.
It really is. But wait, okay, a practical question. Bent over, floating kids in the middle. That sounds incredibly unstable for 100-mile road travel. Wouldn't the air resistance be crazy? Wouldn't they be tumbling?
Ah, But Hall addresses that. He says the stability doesn't come from the arrangement inside the field. It comes from the merged force field itself.
So the field acts like a smooth aerodynamic shell, regardless of how they're positioned inside it.
That's the idea. The field handles the external physics, the air pressure, the friction. The bending inside might just be for balance within the field, or maybe just to maintain that specific visual signature they used. The physics is in the field, not the posture.
Yeah, that requires physics we definitely don't have. This whole coexistence thing, though, it wasn't just out in the remote ranges, right? It bled into the actual base facility.
Oh, absolutely. Hall is very clear. A very small number of people knew. A few top Pentagon generals, maybe some of the range maintenance guys who just learned to look the other way. For this tiny circle of insiders, the tall white presence was treated almost like a foreign embassy. You accommodate them, you don't ask too many questions.
Which leads to possibly my favorite mundane detail in this whole story. The restroom conundrum.
Yeah, it really grounds it, doesn't it? The tall whites, despite all the high tech, are biological beings. They eat, drink, breathe.
And they need to use the restroom.
Right. And according to Hall, the restroom in the nearby male-only barracks, where maybe he or other enlisted personnel were, was apparently disgusting. Filthy.
Yeah, I can picture a barracks bathroom. Probably not great.
So what did the tall whites do? On quiet Sunday nights, when the main Nellis base operations building was mostly empty, entire tall white families would apparently stroll over.
Stroll over and just walk in.
They'd use their force field tech to just pop the locks on the doors non-destructively. Then they'd go inside and use the nice, clean restrooms in the main admin building.
That's incredible. Using force fields to sneak into the good toilets because the barracks ones are gross. It's so practical and alien.
It really highlights that intersection of advanced tech and basic biological needs. They weren't ghosts or energy beings. They were living creatures dealing with everyday realities, just like us, albeit with better lock-picking tools.
And their interactions with Hall became more direct, right? They weren't just ignoring him.
No, they were actively observing him, even using him, in a way. There's the story of a tall white woman named Pamela.
Pamela, what was her deal?
She was apparently training for a role on a technology transfer team working with humans. Her final test, according to Hall, involved impersonating a human woman specifically, Hall's wife walking up to Hall, and then deliberately turning her back on him.
Why turn her back?
To demonstrate complete trust. Not just that she could pass visually, but that she trusted the human subject, Hall, enough not to attack her when vulnerable. It was a psychological test for her.
Wow. That's intense. And wasn't there another case of impersonation?
Yeah, Hall claims another tall white actually disguised himself as Charles Hall to get into secure U.S. labs, places like Livermore.
Using Hall's identity. Why him?
Because Hall, with his weirdly stable psychological profile, was apparently the perfect baseline human. Predictable, non-threatening, observable. They could study him, maybe mimic him, because he was consistent.
So what was their overall take on him? Did they think he was smart, brave?
There's a great quote attributed to a tall white guard who observed Hall interacting with some of the tall white leadership. The guard's assessment was, well, clinical.
Let's hear it.
He apparently said, well, he seems to talk more than most humans, and he seems to eat a lot more than most humans, and he scares a lot more easily than most humans. But see, he's different. He just goes in and talks and eats, and then he comes right back out.
Talkative, hungry, and easily scared, but reliable.
Pretty much. For beings living 600 or 800 years, maybe that predictable consistency, even if slightly neurotic, was exactly what they valued in a long-term observation subject. He didn't cause trouble.
Okay, let's shift gears to the physics.
Yeah.
Because for Hall, the physicist, seeing these beings was one thing. Seeing their craft operate. That was the real mind bender.
Absolutely. He says his biggest shock wasn't seeing aliens, it was the unavoidable conclusion that Albert Einstein's theory of relativity had to be wrong. Fundamentally wrong.
That's a huge statement. Throwing out Einstein.
It's the core of his whole theoretical work that came out of this. He saw tall white craft, and gray craft too, routinely doing things that are flat out impossible under relativity, primarily exceeding the speed of light.
Like the Arcturus trip.
Exactly. He states that tall whites travel 36 light years to Arcturus and back in roughly 2 months.
2 months. Okay, let's do the math. 36 light years each way is 72 light years total, divided by, say, 16th of a year.
You end up needing an average speed of well over 400 times the speed of light. Hall calculated a minimum of 44 times light speed just for the one-way trip in that time frame, but either way.
It shatters the cosmic speed limit. Relativity says as you approach light speed, mass increases towards infinity, requiring infinite energy. It's supposed to be impossible.
Right. But Hall didn't just rely on the craft observations. He used another argument, based on astronomy, to challenge light speed as the ultimate limit. He talked about gravity.
Okay, how does gravity fit in?
He argues that gravity itself must travel faster than light, much faster, possibly instantaneous.
Why?
He uses the example of the Andromeda Galaxy. It's about 2.7 million light years away from us, but we can see it has a stable, organized structure. It rotates coherently.
Okay.
Now, if the force of gravity holding Andromeda together only traveled at the speed of light, it would take 2.7 million years for changes in gravity from one side of the galaxy to affect the other side.
Right, there'd be this massive lag.
A lag so huge the outer stars, moving faster, would essentially outrun the gravitational pull trying to hold them in orbit. The whole galaxy should tear itself apart if gravity is limited to light speed.
So the fact that large galaxies don't fly apart implies gravity works faster than light.
That's Hall's argument. The very existence of stable galactic structures across vast distances suggests gravity's influence propagates much, much faster, maybe infinitely fast.
Okay, so if light speed isn't the ultimate limit, how do you go faster? This leads to his theory, right? The Hall photon theory.
Exactly. Classical physics, Hall points out, kind of settled on the idea that light, a photon, is just made of two interacting force fields, electric and magnetic. That came out of experiments like Michelson-Morley failing to find the ether.
Right.
Hall's proposal is that's incomplete. A photon isn't just two fields, it's actually a bundle of multiple force fields. And here's the key. Not all these force fields experience the same resistance or permittivity moving through space.
Okay, permittivity of free space. Break that down.
Think of it like drag. How much resistance a force field encounters when it travels through the vacuum of space. The electromagnetic field, the one we know best, has a specific permittivity that limits it to speed c.
The speed of light we measure.
Correct. Hall's idea is that there are other force fields bundled in that photon, weaker ones, that have much lower permittivity. They experience almost no drag.
Well, they can travel faster.
Potentially much, much faster. He uses the neutrino as an analogy.
Neutrinos, the particles that barely interact with anything.
Right. They're governed by the weak nuclear force. They can zip right through the entire sun, billions of miles of lead, whatever, without interacting. Why? Because they're primarily interacting with their own force field wires, not the electromagnetic ones that slow things down.
So they aren't subject to the same speed limit because they're on a different track, essentially?
That's the concept. Hall calculates that if you could tap into force fields with extremely low permittivity, the theoretical speeds could be astronomical. He throws out numbers like a trillion times faster than light.
A trillion times c. Okay, that would definitely cover the Arcturus trip.
Comfortably. So FTL travel, in Hall's model, isn't about wormholes or warping space in the Star Trek sense. It's about switching tracks, shifting the craft's interaction from the slow electromagnetic field to one of these faster, low permittivity force fields.
And the entire propulsion system is designed to generate and manipulate these specific fields.
That's the claim. Which leads to some very specific engineering requirements he observed. Design constraints for any craft wanting to use this FTL method.
What are they?
Two big ones. First, shape is absolutely critical. The craft must be a smooth ellipsoid. Think tic-tac, egg-shaped, smooth curves.
Okay, like many classic UFO shapes. Why that shape?
More importantly, what it can't have. No concave sections, no indentations, no rings around a saucer shape, no sharp inward curves. Nothing concave.
Why the ban on concave shapes?
Because, according to Hall, any concave area on the hull causes the carefully generated FTL force fields to become turbulent.
Turbulent, like whitewater rapids instead of smooth flow.
Exactly. And once those fields go turbulent, they apparently snap back to obeying the rules of electromagnetism. They lose their FTL properties.
And what happens then?
Catastrophic energy loss. Infinite heating, basically. The craft instantly becomes subject to Einsteinian limits again. Hall says if a craft goes turbulent, it's immediately restricted to speeds below 80% of light speed, otherwise it just cooks itself.
Okay, so smooth, convex shapes only. What's the second constraint?
The propulsion itself. He says the engine works by generating 5 specific, near-stable subatomic particles. These particles are somehow used to generate and control the different force fields needed for FTL.
5 specific particles. And how do they channel this energy? Not with metal wires, presumably, if they're trying to avoid electromagnetism.
Correct. This is another key detail. The coils used to manage these particles, and fields aren't made of metal. They're made of ceramic fiber optics.
Fiber optics?
Yep.
Like for internet, but ceramic. What kind of ceramic?
Basically rock. He gives the composition as roughly half aluminum oxide and half silicon dioxide. Just basic rock materials, spun into incredibly fine fibers and wound into complex coils.
Why rock?
Because it's non-metallic, largely inert electromagnetically. It won't interfere with or disrupt the delicate FTL force fields the way metal would. It contains the particle energy without creating turbulence.
Okay, ceramic fiber optic coils made of rock. That actually provides a really interesting alternative explanation for Roswell, doesn't it?
It does. Hall directly connects this to Roswell. He argues that the reports of strange melted rocks found at the crash site weren't just rocks. They were the melted remains of these ceramic fiber optic coils.
From the ship's engine or structure?
Yes. He suggests two craft actually crashed at Roswell, likely due to overheating. Maybe their fields went turbulent, maybe the coils failed. And rock melts at high temperatures, 1800 to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, which fits with a catastrophic system failure generating immense heat.
That makes more sense than just random melted rocks being significant. And what about the other famous Roswell artifact? The memory metal.
Hall dismisses that too. He suggests the super thin, flexible yet strong foil that supposedly remembered its shape was simply the thin, non-turbulent protective sheeting used to cover these delicate ceramic coils. It needed to be smooth and resilient, but its primary purpose was field containment, not being some exotic memory metal.
So he's reinterpreting the physical evidence through the lens of his FTL physics.
Exactly. And the performance he witnessed backs up the need for such radical physics. He observed the smaller scout craft pulling maneuvers that involved, he estimated, 15,000 Gs of acceleration.
15,000 Gs? Is it like 10 Gs enough to make a pilot black out? And
Huh?
you said steel liquefies at 10,000 Gs?
Right, we're talking forces that would instantly vaporize any conventional craft and pilot. He described them accelerating sideways so fast they seemed to just blink out of existence to the naked eye.
Which some people would interpret as jumping dimensions, right?
That's Hall's point. People stuck on Einsteinian thinking see that and assume hyperspace, wormholes, dimensions. Hall says no, based on his physics, it's just moving incredibly fast within our dimension, too fast for our eyes or even radar to track properly. It's a speed illusion, not a dimensional jump.
Did Hall ever get to experience this himself? Ride in one?
He did, briefly, though maybe not in the way you'd hope. He got a short ride in the cargo hold of one of the scout craft.
The cargo hold, what was it like? Crushing G-forces, mind-bending visuals.
His description is almost funny in its anticlimax. He said it was remarkably unremarkable.
Unremarkable? How?
Because the same force fields that enable FTL also apparently neutralize inertia inside the craft. So no G-forces, no sensation of movement, really. He just felt like he was sitting in a normal room that was gently lifted off the ground. All the insane physics were happening outside the hull.
Huh. The ultimate smooth ride. So based on all this, Hall classified the craft he saw into different types.
Yeah, based on their likely function and maybe the tech involved. At the top, you've got the deep spacecraft.
The big ones.
Huge. House-sized, he said. Smooth hulls, obviously. Double-hulled, actually, with space between the hulls for repair crews to access the fiber optic windings. These windings carry those 5 subatomic particles that power everything. These are the long-haul interstellar ships, maybe on schedules lasting up to 5 years.
Okay, the interstellar liners. What's next down?
The scout craft. These are smaller, more like an RV or a large van, seating for maybe 24 people.
Are these FTL capable?
Hall says Range for Harry advised against pushing them FTL, suggesting maybe they weren't primarily designed for it, but yes, they were capable of it. They were used more for local system travel, observation, maybe like going from their Nevada base to check something out in California or New Mexico. He mentions a flight time of like 10 minutes from Bishop, California to Roswell.
10 minutes, wow. Okay, deep space, scout craft, any others?
He speculated about military craft. He didn't claim to have seen them used aggressively, but he theorized they would employ more unstable subatomic particles than the 5 used in the regular craft.
More particles for weapons.
That seems to be the idea. Maybe using 7 particles or even 9, with the extra, more volatile ones dedicated purely to offensive or defensive systems. He stressed these would never be used on craft-carrying families or children, strictly military applications.
And he connected this particle count to Eisenhower.
Yeah, there's that persistent story about President Eisenhower being shown 5 different types of alien craft. Hall speculates maybe those 5 craft were symbolic, representing the 5 core near-stable subatomic particles essential for their basic FTL propulsion technology. Just a theory, but it ties things together in his framework. Now, a story this far out, you need some connection to the known world, some kind of external data points, right? Hall does provide a few, and they're pretty intriguing, starting with his relationship with Timothy Taylor.
Timothy Taylor. Okay.
Yeah.
That name might ring a bell for people familiar with UAP research.
Yeah.
He's a figure mentioned in Diana Pasulka's book, American Cosmic, though often under a pseudonym there.
Right. Taylor was a highly respected NASA engineer, also a successful biotech entrepreneur, a serious guy. And Hall and his wife, Marie-Thérèse, confirmed they knew him well, had a friendship spanning about 15 years.
And Taylor didn't just know Hall casually.
No, Taylor actively sought Hall out. Why? Because Taylor, coming from his rigorous engineering background, apparently came to believe that Hall's account was legitimate. That Hall was, as he put it, the real article.
So a NASA engineer thought Hall was credible. Did Taylor ever try to verify things himself?
He did. He actually went out to the Nellis area, visited Creech Air Force Base nearby, and according to Hall, Taylor came back and told him something interesting.
What was that?
Taylor apparently said that Hall, in his books, had actually underplayed how weird and intense the secrecy was around those locations. Taylor described trying to just drive up a particular road near the base and being instantly, aggressively shut down by a military officer. No questions, just turn around now.
So the NASA guy felt the real-world secrecy was even thicker than Hall had portrayed.
Yeah, which is saying something. And Taylor himself is a fascinating figure. He's known in some circles as a kind of high-level connector or gatekeeper for credible experiencers linked to people like Chris Bledsoe, involved with scientists like Gary Nolan.
And wasn't there something about him and the Vatican?
Pasulka's work details his deep dive into phenomenon research, which reportedly led him to visit the Vatican archives and subsequently convert to Catholicism. He seemed to be trying to bridge this high-tech phenomenon with deeper, maybe spiritual or metaphysical realities.
But the connection with Hall ended strangely, didn't it?
Very strangely. After 15 years of friendship, apparently sharing insights and research, Taylor just vanished from their lives, cut off all contact right around the time he was about to become a grandfather.
Just gone. Any explanation?
None that Hall or his wife received. They were left completely puzzled, even speculating, kind of chillingly, wondering if maybe Taylor had, as Marie-Thérèse put it, gone off with them somewhere, with the tall whites or whoever. It's a really unsettling loose end.
Yeah, it really is. That adds a layer of high strangeness for sure. What about other institutions? You mentioned the Vatican.
Right. This wasn't just Taylor's personal journey. Hall's wife, Marie-Thérèse, took a pretty bold step herself. She mailed copies of the first 3 volumes of Hall's Millennial Hospitality books. That's where he details all these experiences directly to Pope Benedict XVI.
Sent the book straight to the Pope. Okay. Did anything come of that?
They actually received a formal written thank you note back from the Vatican acknowledging receipt of the books, signed on behalf of Pope Benedict.
A thank you note from the Pope's office.
Yes. And they later published a copy of this note in Volume 4 of the series.
Yeah, okay, let's be careful here. A thank you note just means they got the books. It doesn't mean the Pope read them and said, yep, tall whites are real.
Absolutely not. It's not an endorsement of the content. But for an institution as historically cautious, as information sensitive, and frankly, as powerful as the Vatican to issue any kind of formal written acknowledgement of receiving materials that make such extraordinary claims about ETs cohabiting on Earth and revolutionary physics.
Still pretty unusual. It suggests the material at least crossed someone's desk at a very high level and wasn't just immediately thrown out.
At the very least. It's another small circumstantial data point that adds to the overall picture. It suggests Hall's story, however wild, was getting attention in some very unexpected places.
Looking back at Hall's own experience, though, what really seems to have made it all possible, his survival and ability to observe, was just that weird combination of traits the tall white guard noted.
Yeah, his predictability, maybe even his slightly anxious nature, combined with those psychological defenses. He was consistent. He showed up, did his job, talked, ate, got scared sometimes, but crucially, he always came back out. He didn't break.
He was the perfect, stable, long-term subject for a species that measures time very, very differently than we do. #Notro.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Charles Hall's accounts, we're really left with 2 massive takeaways, 2 fundamental challenges to how we usually see the world.
Yeah, first, there's this sheer audacity of the claim about presence. Not just lights in the sky, but physical, biological, extraterrestrial species deeply embedded here on Earth.
Living here, working here, apparently farming here since before the last ice age, and casually using the facilities at a major U.S. military base like it's their embassy annex. That level of integration is staggering.
And then there's the second challenge, which is maybe even more profound for how we understand reality itself.
Yeah.
The physics.
Right. The claim that the FTL Travel Hall says he witnessed isn't just possible, but routine, forces a conclusion that our foundational physics, Einstein's relativity, is fundamentally incomplete or just plain wrong in certain domains.
The whole photon theory, whether it's right or wrong in its specifics, points to the idea that the universe might operate on principles, on speed limits, that are wildly different from what we've accepted for the last century.
And the real shock there, maybe the deepest reality shock, isn't just seeing an alien. It's the realization that something as fundamental as the speed of light, a cornerstone of modern science, might be wrong. Or at least not the whole story.
Yeah, because if our understanding of physics at that level is flawed, then you have to ask, what else is? What other parts of our consensus reality, our history, our understanding of life, or the cosmos, are just agreed upon assumptions based on incomplete data, an agreed upon hallucination almost?
It really throws everything into question. It puts the whole human experience into a much larger and maybe slightly unsettling perspective.
Hall tells that story about one of the tall whites, an individual they called the teacher.
Oh yeah, that one's powerful.
The teacher apparently remembered playing with a young Native American girl way back when the teacher was, in their terms, maybe the equivalent of a fourth grader.
Right. But in the time it took the teacher to advance just from their fourth grade to their seventh grade.
That little Native American girl had lived her entire life, grown up, married, had children, grown old, and died.
An entire human lifespan was just a few school years for the tall white, the blink of an eye, really.
So, if that's their perspective, if a human lifetime is that fleeting to them, it makes you wonder, what are they doing now? Are they still here, just waiting for us as a species to maybe graduate from galactic grade school?
And more pressingly, what do we need to figure out, especially about physics, about reality, just to catch up, to even understand the conversation they might be having, let alone earn a seat at whatever table they're sitting at?
That difference in scale, in time, and understanding, that's maybe the biggest, most provocative thought to leave you with today. More profound than any single sighting. Welcome, everyone. We have a deep dive today that takes us from, well, right after World War II, straight into some really terrifying personal experiences.
Yeah, we're looking at a huge amount of material here. Decades worth.
But when you dig into it, there's this, I don't know, chilling consistency that just jumps out.
And that consistency, that's really our focus. It's our data. You know, too often these things are just treated as like one-off stories.
Right, just anecdotes.
Exactly. So our mission here is to synthesize them. We want to move past the, the pure sensationalism and look at these really well-documented military cases right alongside these raw, super personal accounts. See them as basically a stream of evidence. We're hunting for those recurring patterns, psychological effects, which are profound, and the alleged physical evidence that seems to link all these things that, on the surface, look totally separate.
It feels like maybe they're not so separate after all.
That's the hypothesis we're exploring. It looks like potentially one massive systematic phenomenon.
And we've got some foundational history in this stack, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that shows the whole kind of structure of the modern UFO scene.
Both the encounters themselves and the cover-ups that followed.
Yeah. It all seems to kick off like immediately in the summer of 1947.
It really does. So we're grounding our discussion in those huge foundational events, Maury Island and Roswell.
Yeah.
And then we're blending that history with some really detailed modern accounts, focusing on basically three core things.
Which are?
The missing time aspect, that seamless gap. Then there's this forced compliance, almost neurological control.
Okay, unsettling.
And finally, these physical marks that just defy explanation.
So it's a journey then, from like military high command right into the most private personal spaces.
Exactly, the macro and the micro. And you really do have to start in 47 to get the scope of what's happening now.
Why 47 specifically?
Because you see this almost instantaneous, you could say panicked response from authorities. That year basically established the playbook for how the craft were interacted with and for how human agencies used intimidation and narrative control afterwards.
Okay, so let's start with Maury Island. That's Washington State, right?
Yeah.
June 47. So this is even before Roswell.
Just a few weeks before, yeah. And Maury Island is fascinating because it gives us the first really documented case with like physical damage,
Right.
clear military involvement, and the first appearance of the terrifying men in black.
Wow. All in one incident. Who was involved?
It was a harbor patrolman, Harold Dahl, him, his crew, his son, and tragically his dog was involved too.
Okay, so what did they actually see?
Well, the initial sighting was incredibly specific. Dahl and his crew, they see 6 aircraft about 2,000 feet up over Puget Sound.
6 of them.
6. And the description, it's almost like a blueprint. He described them as flat donuts made of some kind of highly reflective material.
Yeah.
Maybe 100 feet across.
100 feet.
Yeah, with a big, like, 25-foot hole right in
Yeah.
the middle. And they even saw small circular observation windows along the sides.
So definitely not a weather balloon or swamp gas.
Absolutely not. This was structured technology, clearly identified.
And it gets worse.
Then it shifts fast from just watching to immediate physical danger. 5 of the craft start circling the 6th one,
Okay.
and that 6th one starts lowering down towards their boat menacingly. Dahl thought they were going to be crushed.
Jeez.
He managed to get ashore, grab binoculars and a camera, but as he did that, the lower craft just stopped, hung there about 500 feet above the water.
Okay, hovering. And then this is where the debris comes in.
This is where it gets brutally real, the physical evidence. While it's hovering, Dahl hears this distinct thump.
Like something hit.
Yeah, then more thumps. At first he thought maybe it was trash, newspapers falling out of that center hole.
But it wasn't?
No, it was lightweight white metal fragments and these dense black lava-like rocks.
Lava rocks dropping from a UFO.
That's the report. And the detail about the rocks is crucial. When they hit the water,
Yeah.
the water started to steam, hissing.
Whoa. So they were incredibly hot or some kind of reaction.
Exactly. Suggests extreme temperature or some bizarre chemical thing happening on contact.
And this debris, it caused damage. You mentioned his dog.
Yeah, the cost was immediate and horrifying. One fragment hit Dahl's dog, killed it instantly.
Oh, man.
Another piece hit his son, wounded him in the arm.
So people are injured too,
Yes. And to make it worse, their radio just died. Completely failed.
leaving them stranded. With injuries, a dead dog, and this impossible metal stuff.
Pretty much. Then the ships just rose up quickly and vanished.
What happens next? He has to report this, right?
He reports it to his boss, Fred Chrisman. And Chrisman's initial reaction, that's the first glimpse of the cover-up.
What did he say?
He dismissed the photos Dahl managed to take, said it was just film noise and damage caused by radiation.
Radiation. That's a specific excuse.
Very specific. And it's the immediate deployment of an official-sounding technical explanation to just minimize the physical evidence, obfuscate it.
But Dahl wasn't buying it.
No, he wanted to prove the debris was real. So he actually went back to Maury Island to collect more samples, the rocks, the metal.
Okay, brave or maybe reckless.
Maybe both. And while he's there, he looks up and sees one of the aircraft again, just hovering there.
Watching him.
He said it felt exactly like it was spying on him.
Chilling.
And that surveillance leads directly, historically, to the men in black.
This is the first time.
The very next day, after he went back for samples, he gets a visitor, a small, pale man dressed in a black suit.
The classic MIB. What did he want?
What's so creepy about this first MIB encounter is the detail the guy had.
He knew things.
He gave Dahl a perfectly descriptive account of everything that happened the day before on the water. Details Dahl had barely told anyone.
So they knew immediately they were watching closely.
It showed immediate, thorough surveillance and knowledge. Then came the threat.
Ah, there it is.
The MIB warned Dahl that bad things, serious things would happen to him and his family if he kept investigating, if he talked.
Wow. So Maury Island, it basically sets the whole stage.
Absolutely. 3 critical elements that we see again and again for like the next 70 plus years.
Okay, what are they?
1, tangible physical threat leading to actual physical evidence, the debris.
Right.
2, immediate official dismissal using some technical jargon, the radiation claim.
Got it.
And 3, the use of sophisticated psychological intimidation, the MIB, linked to, official or governmental interference.
It's a terrifying template, really, for control.
And then, not even a month later, boom, Roswell.
The big one?
The big one. And Roswell basically took that Maury Island template and amplified it. made it an international incident, and really cemented, maybe forever, public distrust of government statements on this topic.
How did it start compared to Mary Island? Was it debris again?
It started with reports of a crash, a flying disc crash near Walker Air Base in New Mexico.
Okay.
But it was the military's initial reaction that just blew up. It was a spectacular failure of narrative control. It basically launched 1,000 conspiracy theories.
What did they do wrong?
Well, at first, they did something astonishing. High military authorities, maybe realizing the scale of what they'd found,
Yeah.
they issued a press release officially confirming the recovery of a flying saucer by an intelligence officer at the Roswell Army Airfield.
Wait, they confirmed it. The military said, we found a flying saucer.
Officially, think about that. The U.S. military, 1947, confirming an extraterrestrial event. Global headlines went nuts.
I can only imagine. That must have been huge.
Huge, but the excitement, as you said, lasted about 24 hours.
That fast. They took it back.
That fast. High command reversed course completely, claimed they'd made a mistake, a big error.
What was the news story?
The flying saucer was just a weather balloon.
A weather balloon.
Yeah.
After confirming a saucer.
Yep. The public narrative got flipped instantly. The case was basically buried for decades after that. It's kind of staggering, the audacity of retracting something like that so quickly.
Especially back then, less instant news.
Yeah.
They thought they could just bury it.
And they mostly did, for a long time. What's fascinating is it only really resurfaced because key military personnel started talking decades later.
Like who?
Specifically, the lead investigator on the scene, Major Jesse Marcel.
The guy in charge of the debris.
The very same. He came forward later in life and said the debris was absolutely unlike anything he'd ever seen, or even heard of.
What did he say it was like?
He described metal fragments that were, quote, light, thin as paper, but incredibly strong and hard.
Indestructible. Yes.
Actively, yeah. Couldn't burn it, couldn't dent it. And crucially, he said it was covered in some kind of hieroglyphic types of writing.
Hieroglyphs. Not English, not Russian.
Something totally alien. And his testimony from the officer in charge directly, unequivocally contradicts the weather balloon story.
Okay, so debris confirmed as weird by the main guy.
Yeah.
But Roswell, there's always talk of bodies, right?
That's the deepest secret. The most disturbing part. We have an account from a photographer.
Yeah.
Claims he was rushed in, taken to this dark-tinted area, and told to take photos. He saw 4 identical bodies, described them as having humongous heads and shadowy skin.
4 of them. Identical.
Wow. And right after taking the pictures, he was debriefed, sworn to secrecy, told to forget everything he saw.
Standard procedure, sounds like.
Textbook procedure for something highly classified. Now, as pressure built up in the 90s, more witnesses talking.
The government had to say something else, right? Beyond weather balloon.
They deployed their next big cover story. In 1994, the NSA put out a report.
Okay, what was the explanation this time?
They claimed the alien bodies people remembered were actually life-size test dummies?
Test dummies, like crash test dummies.
Used in high-altitude parachute experiments, they said. This explanation coming almost 50 years later.
Yeah, sounds pretty weak.
It was widely seen by researchers not as a clarification, but as just another attempt to cover up the situation, provide a flimsy, convenient alternative.
So the story keeps changing. Saucer, balloon, dummies.
But the final nail in the coffin for the official story came from the man who started the lie.
Who? Marcel.
No, Lieutenant Walter Haut. He was the public information officer who released the original weather balloon press release back in '47.
Okay.
Just before he died in 2005, he signed a sworn affidavit, a deathbed confession, essentially.
What did it say?
Haut confirmed the weather balloon story was a total cover-up for a recovered UFO, and he stated under oath that he had personally seen the dead alien bodies.
Wow. The guy who issued the denial confirms the reality on his deathbed.
Exactly. So Roswell gives us the definitive template for narrative control, even if it was fumbled initially.
Let's recap that template.
Instant confirmation, maybe accidental, followed by immediate massive military retraction. Then decades of shifting inconsistent official stories, saucer to balloon to test dummies.
It really shows that controlling the human response is just as important as dealing with the actual phenomenon itself.
Precisely. It's about managing perception as much as managing physical evidence.
Okay, so that's the big picture. Military control, large-scale events. Now let's shift gears. We're moving from, like, crash sites and military bases.
To intensely personal, private moments, where the control isn't external government pressure, but something internal, Psychological.
And the common thread here, you said, is losing time and losing control.
Yes. The profound loss of personal agency. And this complete distortion of time, we call it the seamless time gap.
What connects the MIB threatening doll in 47 to these modern stories?
It's that consistent application of external pressure, but this time maybe not human pressure, to control consciousness, to control memory.
Yeah.
The experience often isn't even remembered right away. It's discovered later, like, wait, where did the last 4 hours go?
Suggesting some mechanism that can just pause your reality.
Or isolate it. Freeze the witness's subjective experience of time. Hashtag 2.1, the seamless time gap, the core mechanic.
Okay, let's get into some examples. The Texas Sleeper account sounds ominous.
It starts subtly strange. Middle of a warm Texas night, this person wakes up freezing cold.
Inside their house.
Inside, and weird things are wrong. Phone's dead, smart thermostat is dead, but they look outside, neighbors' lights are on fine.
So it's localized to their house. And didn't you say something about cats?
Yeah, the cats. Normally always around. Completely vanished. Gone.
Okay, that's creepy. The atmosphere is building.
Exactly. So the sleeper cautiously goes downstairs and hears this faint, throttling humming sound.
Humming, like electrical.
Described like a muffled engine or maybe a slow, rhythmic weed whacker, and sees a strange glow coming from the first floor.
This is the moment, isn't it? Right before whatever happens.
The classic pre-contact markers, audible disturbance, visible light anomaly.
And then the reality breaks.
This is where it just seems to cease.
Yeah.
The sleeper describes taking the next step down the stairs and suddenly feeling like they walked off the side of a cliff or were sucked into the floor.
Oh, like literally.
The sensation was a total loss of physical feeling, just gone, blank.
Until when?
The next memory is the phone alarm going off in the morning.
Just morning?
Yep. Cats are back, acting normal, house temperature is back to normal, but hours have just disappeared.
How much time was lost?
They pieced together it was probably 6 or 7 hours.
And is there any proof besides the feeling?
This is where it gets really compelling. Objective evidence. Their security app showed the front door had been open and closed multiple times during the night.
Right.
But the exterior security cameras, 0 recorded footage between about 10 p.m. in the morning. Just blank.
Equipment malfunction.
That's what you'd think. But then they talked to the neighbor across the street. The neighbor's cameras, pointing right at the sleeper's house, had an identical time gap in their recordings for the exact same period.
Okay, that's not a malfunction. That's coordinated blanking.
Regional data blanking. It suggests an external influence capable of disrupting recording technology over an area.
And there's something else weird, right? With water.
Yes. The impossible physical consequence. Their 55-gallon fish tank was missing about 2/3 of its water, maybe 40 gallons. Gone.
Leaked, spilled.
That's the thing. The surrounding carpet, the floorboards, bone dry.
40 gallons of water doesn't just vanish without a trace.
Not in 6 hours in a closed room, no. It doesn't evaporate that fast. It suggests either instantaneous removal,
like souped out,
or maybe rapid high-energy vaporization that left no condensation, no trace. It links the time loss to some kind of massive energy event inside the house.
Okay, that's deeply weird. Let's talk about the trampoline freeze. Sounds less contained.
This one involves the psychological side of time loss. 2 high school friends, they sneak out late, maybe 1:00 a.m., lying on a trampoline, looking at the stars.
Normal teenage stuff. Until
the sky itself changes. They said it lost its depth, its structure. Visually became like a cube of sky.
A cube? How does the sky become a cube?
Hard to picture, right? But that's their description. And then this huge silent UFO appears above them. Fills like a quarter of their vision.
Silent again? That's a common theme. What do?
Their reaction was bizarre. Totally shared, totally instinctive. They both immediately flipped onto their stomachs.
Okay.
Hiding. But they didn't speak. Not a word. Yet they both experienced this mental, nonverbal communication. A command.
What did it say?
Basically, stay flat and it won't see us. They described it as a direct telepathic constraint, overwhelming their instinct to run.
So they're frozen there. Mentally pinned down. For how long?
That's the temporal whiplash. It felt like maybe a few minutes, holding their breath, totally still.
But it wasn't minutes.
The instant the craft moved out of sight, they realized it was daybreak.
Daybreak, like sunrise.
Yeah, 7th or 8:00 in the morning. 6 full hours had passed.
6 hours lost in what felt like minutes. while being mentally forced to stay still.
Exactly. It's like the time gap mechanism bypassed physical restraint and went straight for a mental lockdown.
And does this happen to people repeatedly? You mentioned the up north loss.
Yes. That report confirms it can be recurring, targeting specific individuals. This person had 2 distinct missing time events.
What were they?
First one, they lost 3 hours right in the middle of a Facebook argument. Just gone. Woke up confused, disoriented, lying on a pile of clothes.
Mid-argument. That's oddly specific.
Isn't it? And the second time, 4 hours vanished between getting out of the shower around 9 p.m. and suddenly finding themselves starting their car at 2 a.m. No memory of the intervening time.
Just gone again. How did that feel?
They described a deep, profound feeling afterwards. Feeling violated like an assault victim, but with no memory of the assault itself.
So the trauma is there, even if the memory isn't.
The absence of memory is replaced by the presence of psychological trauma. That seems key. Hashtag 2.2 forced compliance in altered states. Now, sometimes the control isn't just about time or telepathic command. Sometimes it seems more physiological, an induced state.
Making the person compliant. Vulnerable.
Like the up north worker, the same one with the missing time.
Yeah.
They started experiencing something they called zombie-like drowsiness.
Zombie drowsiness, what does that mean?
It was this uncontrollable, sudden urge to just drop everything and go to sleep. Right now.
Like mid-activity.
Mid-computer game, mid-meal. Just overwhelming sleepiness. They said there was no fighting it.
That sounds like narcolepsy almost. But it wasn't.
It doesn't seem like it. It felt external. It points towards some kind of direct neurological influence, maybe a targeted frequency, an energy field inducing this specific vulnerable state.
But here's the kicker. There was a cure, right?
Yes. This is the really interesting analytical point. They discovered this intense, irresistible drowsiness would vanish instantly.
If they did what?
If they drove into a busy, populated city center.
Really? Just being around lots of people stopped it.
The moment they entered the dense, chaotic, urban environment, the urge completely disappeared.
Why? What's the theory?
We have to speculate, of course. But maybe the influence is localized. Or it requires isolation to work effectively.
So the city disrupts it.
If the control is, say, telepathic, or based on a specific energy frequency, perhaps the sheer density of human thought, technology, radio waves, everything in a city center, maybe it just scrambles the signal. Acts like a shield.
A localized countermeasure against a targeted mental attack. That's wild.
It suggests the control mechanism isn't all-powerful. It has limitations.
We see a different kind of compulsion in the hooded figure story too, right?
Yes. Less about sleepiness, more about overriding fear. The narrator knew this menacing figure was waiting in the living room.
But went in anyway.
Felt absolutely compelled to continue into the living room, even though they were terrified.
How did they describe that feeling?
They said, I didn't have a choice, but I suddenly felt very okay with the idea.
Okay with it. That switch from terror to just calm acceptance. Forced acceptance.
That profound loss of free will, replaced by a manufactured sense of okayness, that might be the most terrifying sign of nonverbal control.
And this control can even seep into dreams. The up north worker again.
Yes, the manipulation seems to extend into the subconscious. This person reported recurring dreams, always featuring strangers.
Yeah.
Strangers urgently telling them to wake up, saying it was really important.
Like a warning. From who?
Unclear. One dream was incredibly vivid. They dreamt they were in a hotel room, someone's knocking, shouting, hello, outside the door.
Okay.
And simultaneously, a voice on the phone in the dream is desperately pleading, do not open the door.
Wow. So, conflicting messages. Wake up, but don't engage.
It's like some kind of persistent, maybe external alert system trying to break through whatever state is being imposed on them during sleep.
So if you connect the zombie drowsiness, the need to sleep,
to the urgent wake-up messages in the dreams,
it suggests this isn't a one-off thing, it's a continuous process. Managing their consciousness, maybe. Or maybe two different influences fighting over them.
Could be. It suggests the control mechanism is dynamic.
Right.
Ongoing, not just a single event. Okay, so we've talked about messing with time, messing with the mind. But then there's the hard stuff. The physical evidence left behind.
The things you can't just explain away as psychological.
Exactly. These details, the surgical marks, the potential implants, these really bizarre sensory after effects, these are the anchors. They strongly suggest these events go way beyond just hallucinations or dreams. Hashtag 3.1, the impossible markings.
Let's talk about the college junior. This was back in 1996.
Yeah. She wakes up one morning, looks in the mirror, and finds two perfectly parallel lines etched onto her face.
Cuts, scratches.
Like incisions, but incredibly fine, narrower than a human hair.
Okay.
And here's the really weird part. They were instantly sealed. No blood, no scab, just covered with this clear, hard gel, like a liquid Band-Aid, she called it.
Instantly sealed.
Yeah.
With no blood. That doesn't sound medically possible in 96.
Not with anything commonly available, no. Surgical precision that seemed beyond the tech of the time.
Did she try to figure out how it happened?
Yes, and this is what makes her account so powerful. She tried to replicate the marks herself.
How?
Used a sewing needle, a staple, even a paper clip, tried to make similar parallel lines on her skin.
The result?
Every single self-inflicted cut immediately bled. They were jagged, not perfectly straight, and much wider and deeper than the original marks.
So her experiment proved.
It proved that whatever made those original marks used a technology far beyond a simple sharp object. Maybe a high-precision laser, something that cut and cauterized simultaneously. Flawless, alien precision.
Okay, that's one incident. But then something else happened years later.
Years later, yeah. Routine dental x-rays, full facial ones. 2 separate times, years apart, different dentists. The x-rays showed an almost square image hovering in the tissue above her teeth.
Square, not like a filling or anything biological.
Definitely not. Square is geometric, non-organic. The first dentist just kind of brushed it off, called it an x-ray anomaly.
Standard procedure for weird stuff on x-rays, maybe.
Possibly. But the reaction of the second dental technician, years later, that's chilling.
What do they do?
This technician leaned in close, looked right at the square on the new x-ray, and whispered to her.
Yeah.
Whispered, "We see them all the time."
Whoa, wait. We see them all the time. Plural. Implying these square things are common.
That's the implication. That this specific geometric artifact shows up often enough in dental x-rays for technicians to recognize it as a known, though unspoken, phenomenon.
Suggesting widespread implants, tagging.
A widespread, ongoing process. That's one interpretation.
How did the woman herself process this?
Well,
finding this thing inside her.
Her perspective is really interesting. She didn't automatically assume malice. She kind of rationalized it, said something like, it's just science, nothing nefarious or evil. Yeah. She compared it to how humans tag animals.
Like researchers tagging whales or birds.
Exactly. She speculated, we do this all the time to other species. Maybe they did it with far more regard for me than we have for other species on our own planet.
That's a surprisingly clinical take.
Hey.
Reframing abduction as research.
It challenges that purely hostile view, doesn't it? If the procedure is so advanced it causes no pain, leaves perfect marks, heals instantly, maybe it is more like clinical tagging, prioritizing data collection and subject maintenance over, well, consent?
It's still terrifying, but a different kind of terror. More detached.
And we see echoes of these precise marks elsewhere, too, like the paired punctures report.
Tell me about that one.
Involved a child after some kind of incident involving running from the woods, maybe missing time, finds 2 small red puncture marks on his right ankle.
Okay, like bites or...
That's the thing. They were identical to a set of marks found years earlier on his left ankle, linked to a weird sleepwalking incident when he was only 5.
Identical marks years apart on opposite ankles. That's symmetry.
The symmetry, the recurrence, the specific nature of these non-traumatic marks, it again suggests a consistent physical procedure happening across years, like repeated sampling or tagging. Hashtag tag 3.2 post-event sensory and cognitive shifts. Now, the physical impact isn't always just marks or implants you can see on an x-ray. Sometimes it's stranger, disrupting the body's chemistry maybe, or neurological function.
Leading to weird sensory stuff?
Exactly. Remember the hooded figure encounter?
Yeah, the one where the person felt compelled to go into the room.
Right. Well, part of that encounter involved an overwhelming smell. When the figure turned around, the sound faded, but this odor just filled the space.
What did it smell like?
Described specifically as death, like the unique sort of antiseptic and decay smell you sometimes find in hospitals around dying people. The witness said it thickened the air.
Ugh, that's visceral. A smell associated with profound mortality.
And that ties strangely back to the Texas sleeper, the one with the missing time and the missing fish tank water.
Yeah. What happened to them afterwards?
After the whole event, they noticed their entire body smelled like burnt marshmallows.
Burnt marshmallows. That's incredibly specific. And weird.
Highly specific, yeah. That strange odor, plus the impossible vanishing water. It hints that maybe the witness and their environment were subjected to some kind of rapid, high-energy process.
Like what? Radiation. Ionization.
Maybe ionization, maybe some kind of thermal exposure. Something that left a unique chemical residue on their skin, hence the smell.
Okay, these physical after effects are bizarre. But then there's the case of the boxer owner. That one sounds really disturbing. Cognitive effects.
Deeply troubling, yes. This person reported an intense experience involving bright lights and a metallic room. Came back, found their blankets rearranged on the bed in perfect spiral-type designs.
Okay, weird physical trace. But the cognitive part.
After this experience, she developed severe cognitive regression. Problems with speech, a sudden, pronounced stutter, and intense difficulty with reading comprehension.
She couldn't read properly anymore.
Struggled immensely. She said she felt, quote, dumber in a sense.
This really challenges that clinical research with regard idea from the college junior, doesn't it?
It directly challenges it. If the process is so advanced and clinical, why cause targeted neurological damage? Why disrupt critical human functions like speech and reading?
Because it's permanent.
This is the craziest part. The damage was measurable, life-altering.
Wow.
But, almost a year later, she had a second encounter. Or rather, an aborted one.
What happened?
Just a bright light shooting through her room. The house started rumbling violently, lasted maybe 5 seconds, then instantly gone.
Okay, and after that?
Immediately after that brief second incident, her reading comprehension and speech instantly, completely returned to normal.
Snapped back, the stutter gone, reading fine.
Not like flipping a switch.
That's stunning. What does that even mean?
Well, it suggests the initial damage wasn't permanent or accidental. Either it was a side effect they later corrected, or, more chillingly, the cognitive damage and the reversal were both intentional acts.
Like demonstrating control.
Demonstrating comprehensive control over her neurological state. We gave you the damage, and now we've taken it away. It's a display of power.
Okay, this is getting into seriously high strangeness territory now. We're moving beyond just lost time or weird marks.
We're moving into moments that challenge our fundamental perception of reality itself. Physics, logic.
Encounters where the interaction just feels profoundly non-human. Operating by rules we don't understand. Hashtag tag 4.1, bizarre visuals and impossible movement.
Let's talk about the movement first. How these things are reported to move. It constantly defies inertia, defies physics as we know it.
Like the NH aerial dance from 1997.
That's a classic example, yeah. Witnesses see these large lens-shaped lights just kind of milling about slowly high up in the sky.
Okay, slow movement isn't too weird.
No, but then smaller lights emerge from the big ones.
And they move differently.
Dramatically differently. They dart quickly back and forth and side to side very quickly and changing directions instantly.
Instantly. Like 0G turns. Right angles at high speed.
Exactly. Then they'd start squiggling about very erratically, almost like insects, before zipping back into the larger ships.
Okay, squiggling isn't a word you usually associate with aircraft.
No, and the physics are just impossible for us. Changing direction instantly means infinite acceleration and deceleration.
Which you can't do with mass, right? Newton's laws.
Not under known mechanics. It implies some mechanism that manipulates mass, or maybe local space-time itself, like a warp bubble or an inertial dampening field.
And the squiggling suggests something almost biological or beyond mechanical.
It captures that profoundly non-mechanical feel, yes. Unpredictable, erratic, not like a machine following a flight path.
We also see impossible speed combined with silence, right? The green orb sighting.
Yeah, that one's striking. A high schooler sees this large, green, glowing orb, followed by 2 or 3 smaller ones.
Doing what?
Just soaring across the sky, completely silent. No trail, no exhaust.
Okay, silent flight is common in these reports.
But what makes this one stand out is confirmation. It was seen by 2 witnesses, in different towns, miles apart, at roughly the same time. Meaning the object had to be traveling at very high altitude and very high speed to cover that distance and be seen from both locations. Yet it was perfectly silent and visibly glowing.
So, extreme speed, high altitude, total silence, bright visibility. Nothing we have does all that.
No known terrestrial craft combines those characteristics.
And then there's shape-shifting. That sounds even more reality-bending.
That was reported by the abductee who had the cognitive issues, the boxer owner. Her last encounter.
What did she see?
She saw a black, amorphous object in the sky, constantly changing shape.
Amorphous, like a blob.
But fluidly changing. At one point, she said it looked exactly like the space shuttle.
It mimicked the space shuttle.
For a moment, before changing again and heading towards her car.
So not just impossible movement, but complete mastery over visible form. Dynamic transformation. Maybe even mimicry.
It suggests the technology or the phenomenon isn't just about propulsion, it's about manipulating its own physical appearance at will. Hashtag tag 4.2 nonverbal interaction and alien logic.
Okay, this leads us to maybe the most unsettling part.
Yeah.
The interactions themselves. When there is interaction, it seems governed by a logic that's just alien to us.
Completely alien. Take the shared abduction of consciousness report. That's a terrifying look at a group psychological event.
What happened there? A group of friends.
Yeah, friends hanging out in a park. And suddenly they all just freeze. Simultaneously. Stop moving, stop talking.
All of them at the same time.
All at once. The narrator blacks out, wakes up, feels like hours later, totally alone in this cold metallic room.
Oh, wow. Classic abduction setting.
And there are 3 large screens in front of them, showing the park and their friends, still frozen, viewed from above.
Like surveillance feeds, watching their own abduction.
That's how it felt. Then they're back in the park, everyone's unfrozen, but they're all profoundly disturbed.
Did they talk about it?
Barely. They shared this single unspoken realization. One of the girls finally voiced it, we're on TV somewhere.
That feeling of being watched.
Yeah.
Recorded.
Exactly. But the truly binding horror was the aftermath. They felt intensely unable to discuss it further, beyond those few sentences.
Why? What stalked them?
A shared, palpable fear of surveillance, as if talking about the details, acknowledging the memories hadn't been wiped, would somehow elude them.
So like a post-hypnotic suggestion. Or lingering telepathic command enforcing silence.
It feels like that, a constraint, which links right back to the MIB telling Dahl not to talk, way back in 47. Don't discuss what you saw.
Wow, okay, that's dark. But then there's the pancake offering. That sounds almost quaint.
It's delightfully bizarre, isn't it? Michigan grandparents, woken up by a football-shaped craft outside.
Okay.
They encounter these nude, human-like creatures, but with elongated heads, and one of them offers them something.
The pancake.
A flat, squishy, pancake-like substance. I mean, you have to picture this. Naked, big-headed aliens offering Grandma and Grandpa a pancake.
It's almost comical, but I bet it wasn't funny at the time.
No, the sincerity of the interaction seems key. The grandparents were reluctant, scared, but they tore off a piece and ate it.
What did it taste like?
They said like some kind of unfamiliar grain. Not unpleasant, just alien.
And what happened after they ate it?
The moment they swallowed it, the creatures immediately retreated, gave a little still wave, got back on their platform, and the whole craft just disappeared.
So the eating was the crucial part, the transaction.
It seems like it. The entire interaction culminated in that act. Why offer food? It wasn't about hunger.
Was it a test? Compliance? Communion? A biological sample, maybe?
Or some kind of nonverbal treaty. A shared experience required to complete the encounter. We don't know. But the fact that everything stopped the second they ate, it points to some alien logic, some transactional purpose we just don't grasp.
Okay, one last one. The hooded figure's appearance. You mentioned impossible geometry.
Yes, back to that figure. Described as incredibly tall, often hunched over, wearing this black cloak.
Standard creepy figure.
But the observation of its height violated basic perspective. When the witness saw it from behind, the cloak ended at a height suggesting a very tall person, maybe 6'5" or so.
Okay.
But when the figure turned around to face them, it was suddenly even taller. As if its head, maybe its entire upper body, had been totally invisible from behind.
How is that possible? Like it inflated, unfolded.
It suggests a violation of 3D space. And then the description of the eyes.
Yeah.
Horrifying, like looking at a 2-dimensional or 4-dimensional object existing in a 3-dimensional world.
Whoa. Trying to perceive something from outside our dimensions.
Exactly. Think about trying to really understand a 3D cube if you only lived on a flat 2D plane. You could see its shadow, its cross-sections, but not the whole thing.
So this entity, maybe it only partially exists in our reality, or operates from higher dimensions.
That's what the description implies. Its physical presence doesn't conform to our physics. It causes our 3D senses to perceive impossible geometry, shifting shapes. It's fundamentally other, beyond our physical rules. Hashtag outro.
So when you pull all this together, I mean, this huge pile of data,
From Mary Island's falling rocks in 47.
to the impossible geometry of the hooded figure, the cognitive damage and repair.
The missing time, the implants.
What's really inescapable is the consistency. The method seems so consistent.
The paralysis, the induced sleep, the forced compliance, the memory wipes or gaps.
Yeah, that external pressure on human agency, whether it's an MIB threat or a zombie drowsiness, it feels systematic, targeted, constant.
And the two themes that really jump out at me are secrecy and invasiveness.
Right, absolutely. Secrecy and evasiveness. Connect the dots. Major Marcel's indestructible metal with hieroglyphs.
The college student's perfect laser cuts instantly healed.
The square implant that technicians apparently see all the time.
And those poor kids on the trampoline feeling like we're on TV somewhere. You put that all together, across generations, and the implication is pretty chilling.
It points towards what? A unified program.
It suggests a systematic, high-tech, ongoing process. Maybe data collection, maybe biological research, maybe both.
Where human consent is just not part of the equation.
Completely secondary to whatever this scientific or strategic objective is.
But that brings up that contradiction you mentioned, the ethical one.
Exactly. We heard the college junior trying to frame it clinically, maybe even with more regard than we show animals.
Yeah.
But the same process causes regional blackouts of cameras, instant neurological damage, total memory theft, profound psychological trauma.
That doesn't sound
like regard.
So if these beings, whatever they are so advanced, they can steal hours of your life, cut you with lasers that heal instantly, implant things without a trace. Why all the secrecy? Why the trauma?
What possible data are they collecting that warrants this level of invasive high-tech research, yet demands such elaborate cover-ups and manipulation, both by them and seemingly by human authorities trying to manage the fallout? Yeah.
And maybe the even creepier thought, if they're operating with higher dimensional physics like that hooded figure, are they even fully aware of the sheer terror they inflict on our three-dimensional minds? Is our fear just collateral damage to them, an irrelevant byproduct of their process?
That is definitely something to mull over. Until our next deep dive.